The FIFA World Cup's ticket pricing is beyond ridiculous, but hey, the official match ball's pretty cool, right? Ange is already facing the sack at Forest, and Thomas Muller becomes Germany's most decorated footballer. This is DMAC Daily. Just when you thought FIFA couldn't stoop any lower, the ticket prices for next year's World Cup have since been unearthed, and oh boy, the game is so far gone. Like, we're actually cooked here, lads. I mean, you thought a 48-team World Cup, or better yet, a 64-team World Cup hosted in 6 countries was egregious stuff. Well, just wait till you see these 2026 ticket prices. Now, tickets to the event are still unavailable to the general public right now, but back in September, there was a pre-sale lottery where an undisclosed number of entrants could gain early access to tickets throughout each stage of the tournament, of which there were 4 categories available. Category 1 being the most expensive, and Category 4 being for the folks in the nosebleeds. Now, ahead of this release, FIFA ensured that they had tickets as low as $60 US, which is still a lot of money, by the way, but it does appear as though those tickets were available. However, the overwhelming majority of tickets were ludicrously priced. For the opening match in the USA, the cheapest ticket was $560, whilst the Category 1 ticket was $2,735. Imagine paying that to watch a Pochettino side. It's similarly farcical for the tournament openers in both Mexico and Canada too. Heading into the latter stages of the tournament, and as one could expect, it's more of the same. But to top it all off, we have the World Cup final, which is essentially the final boss of capitalist greed in sport. The cheapest ticket available is $2,030. That's 10 times the amount of the cheapest ticket 4 years prior, with the most expensive ticket priced at over $6,000. I mean, what more can be said here? Football is simply no longer a game for the average fan. And to anyone saying, well, this is dynamic pricing, that these tickets will change upon demand, that no one will pay this kind of money, well, I got bad news to tell you. Those limited World Cup final tickets immediately sold out across all 4 categories. The majority of these grossly overpriced tickets will unfortunately sell as soon as they're available to the general public. Granted, we did see prices plummet in the Club World Cup for lesser known games, but Mamelodi Sundowns v Ulsan Hyundai isn't comparable to a random World Cup game. I'd assume that the vast majority of tickets available will most likely sell quickly at their established price points. Now, did I expect a FIFA World Cup hosted primarily in the United States to factor affordability in the slightest? Of course not. But this is still incredibly disappointing because most fans can't afford this, especially when you consider the exorbitant indirect costs of attending, from flights to accommodation, food, transport. Put it this way, my broke ass certainly can't afford it. Staying on the theme of World Cup news, and the official match ball of next year's tournament has been announced in the Trionda. The ball's design features blue, red, and green colors to obviously represent the 3 host nations. You'll also notice the iconography of each nation, the star of the USA, the maple for Canada, and the eagle for Mexico. Beyond the aesthetics of the ball, it's also the most advanced technologically speaking. In 2022, we got a first glimpse of ball technology which worked in unison with VAR. In 2026, the motion sensor is even more fine-tuned to help enable quicker offside calls, and even tracking every touch to resolve controversial situations like potential handballs or fouls. Adidas have claimed that this is one of the brightest balls ever made, but there are valid concerns with this design. Pretty much every other ball since 1970 has been predominantly white, so it's easy to track at full speed. This ball, however, has 3 other distinct colors. At full speed, visibility issues could be a legitimate problem for players and obviously the goalkeepers. Now, the diabolical side of me low-key yearns for this kind of chaos. Like, the Javelani was so poorly designed, yet incredibly entertaining, but it remains to be seen how this ball performs. I think the ball looks pretty cool. The Adidas logo maybe seems a bit too enlarged, but this is coming from someone with very little appreciation or taste in design. Shifting gears to Ange Postecoglou's Nottingham Forest, and this relationship has quickly turned toxic following a fresh defeat, this time at the hands of FC Midtjylland at home. That's 0 wins now from 6 games in charge, but this was a particularly shocking display. Forest are financially miles ahead of their Danish opponents, yet copped 3 of the softest goals you'll ever see in circumstances that were eerily similar to the woes of Ange's Spurs tenure. Frail guilty from set pieces and then being caught on a counter-attack. It was a familiar sight, Ange with his hands on his head in disbelief. But the real shock was the crowd's reaction to conceding that third goal. Boos ringing, sacked in the morning chants. He's now lost the fans in the stadium, also on social media too. And to be honest, it makes sense. They absolutely adored their previous manager who took them from the depths of relegation to a long-awaited European return. So for the owners to sack him and bring in someone with a completely different philosophy who also had legitimate criticisms in England too, it was such a seismic gamble, and although it's technically early days, it's already backfiring. Ange is in serious trouble. I mean, look at the fixture list that awaits him too. Bar Charity FC, that is a brutal run of games. I think the writing may already be on the wall for the Greek Aussie. Personally, I'm shocked by how it's gone. As someone who has been a genuine fan of Ange, his philosophy, and the fearlessness of his approach ever since his Brisbane Roar days, I just cannot fathom how quickly the tide has turned. Ange ball has objectively become disastrous, deeply flawed, at least in its last 2 installments. But that was only one of 36 European matches across the Europa and Conference League overnight. There were wins for the other 2 English representatives, with Aston Villa defeating Feyenoord on the road and Crystal Palace in their first ever European fixture won in identical fashion at Dynamo Kiev. There were 2 other genuinely fascinating situations that occurred in the Europa League. In Rome, Lille goalkeeper Berk Ozer made a triple penalty save after the ref ordered a retake on 2 separate occasions, stopping Dovbyk twice before Sula's effort was also saved in a match Lille went on to win 1-0. That is the definition of clutch goalkeeping. And in equally bizarre scenes, Celtic v Braga would succumb to a truly insane VAR ruling. Now, I generally try to steer clear of VAR rulings because for a lot of the controversies, it's a subjective opinion that is guaranteed to piss off one fan base minimum. But in this specific instance, this VAR call was farcical. Celtic were 1-0 down when Iheanacho had seemingly equalized, but VAR then overruled the decision, claiming a handball in the build-up. But from every single replay available, it was so obvious that the ball did not touch his hand in the slightest. Go watch the highlights. It is genuinely scandalous. Braga went on to win that game 2-0 as well. I hope there is some accountability there because that is the most blatantly incompetent officiating I've ever seen. Moving to Canada, and Thomas Muller has just made history, claiming his first trophy with the Vancouver Whitecaps as they prevailed 4-2 over Vancouver FC in the Canadian Championship. Muller scored and assisted in another impressive outing for the German legend, but this particular trophy just made his legacy all the more special, having overtaken fellow iconic teammate Toni Kroos to pick up his 35th career trophy, becoming the most decorated German footballer to ever do it. Speaking with German outlet Bild following the achievement, Muller was all class, downplaying the significance, stating, "Statistics are a nice thing, nothing more and nothing less. I don't play football for my title legacy, but because I simply love being on the pitch." His brief tenure in MLS has been a timely reminder of the magic he still possesses, even at 36 now. In just 5 appearances, he's already accumulated 5 goals, 3 assists, and remains unbeaten. I was desperate for him to join my beloved Sydney FC, but he's obviously still way too good for the A-League. Maybe in a year or 2, he can close the show down under. Either way, I'm just happy to see him enjoy the final stages of his illustrious career. Beyond the generational talent he possessed and all the accolades that have come with, it's his character and overall energy that has made him such a universally likable figure. Anyways, guys, that's all for today's DMAC Daily. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.